Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fergal Quigley from the Department of Housing Planning and Local Government. So I'm delighted to join you here this morning at this EPA webinar. This is my first, so I'm looking forward to it. The title on your programme is Preparing for the Third River Basin Management Plan and Beyond. And I thought I would put that in the context of the expectation that we're heading into a new programme for government and new government, so that the challenges that new administration will face. So in talking to today, we're kind of giving the message from the department that we would have briefed political parties on as well. What are the challenges in the water space facing Ireland, facing the department? We configured these around two interrelated themes: protecting and enhancing the quality of Ireland's water in the environment, including the marine environment, and ensuring the delivery of modern, robust and resilient drinking water and wastewater infrastructure. When we look at the water issues facing the environment, these are significantly influenced by many factors. Obviously, in the environmental field, as we know, much policy, many of the legal directives and so on are set at EU level. I think there is growing realization that you cannot look at one environmental factor on its own. So the issue of protecting our water resources are significantly linked with action on climate, biodiversity, reaching our sustainability goals, and so forth. And obviously this is a very opportune time to talk to you just a couple of weeks after the European Commission published on the same day both its biodiversity strategy and its farm-to-fork agricultural strategy. And I'm glad to see the Commission here this morning. So this is a very important time in terms of European policy, in terms of Irish policy, and indeed in terms of many of the questions facing the world. And COVID-19 has begun to question, has made people question our relationship with the world and with the environment. And of course, it will be no surprise to know that the provision of housing in a sustainable manner has been one of the biggest issues facing the proposed new government, and was one of the key issues during the local election. And water services are critical to supporting government ambition in that area. So the challenges facing us in the water sector in Ireland, not too many surprises here. We have known existing infrastructural deficits. While our standards in most cases are good, there are known areas of weakness where we need to up the game. And we have seen that in relation to bathing water results recently, where we lost this bathing water status in one area in Dublin. We have 5 outstanding EU infringements, which is not a good place to be. We have been faced the challenge of population growth, population changes in terms of migration into larger cities. Ireland has faced significant inward migration in recent years. And that has been a challenge, and we see that most recently in relation to the provision of water, for example, in the Dublin region, where half the population of the city was on a boil water notice for a significant length of time before Christmas, which is not acceptable in any modern city, and where we're now all in a nationwide drought situation, some of which is preventable, some which may not be. So that leads to my other point here, that conserving water, fixing leaks and modifying our behaviour continues to be a significant challenge to us in Ireland. In terms of investing in our network, we also need to ensure that we make use of the existing network. And I think Irish Water is doing very good work in that regard, in particular in relation to understanding the urban wastewater network in a way that wasn't understood before. In terms of updating our legislation, we know that we have deficits in regard to some of the implementation legislation under the Water Framework Directive. and we have published a general scheme for abstractions, for example, to underpin water abstraction in the future in a sustainable manner, and indeed to provide new water supply to Dublin and the Eastern and Midlands region. We also know that while the quality of our water, drinking water, is generally very high, there are deficiencies in rural and private water supplies, and that has to be an area that we must address in the coming years. And after a number of decades where we have seen significant improvement in our surface waters, we have seen those improvements tail off in recent years and see some decline in our surface waters. And of course, we need to be able to adapt to climate change, and we published an adaptation strategy last year. But again, the issue of one of the wettest winters for a long time, followed by possibly the driest spring in record, certainly in the eastern region, are these manifestations of climate change. Turning now to the preparation of the Third River Basin Management Plan. Obviously, the River Basin Management Plan sets the framework for action right across the water sector in terms of environmental issues, infrastructural issues, and so on. And that sets that frame for many actors in the environment. It's an opportunity in terms of preparing for the Third River Basin Management Plan to work collaboratively with initiatives in the climate change and biodiversity areas to deliver better environmental outcomes. We're dealing with a very complex policy landscape. If you look at the UN Sustainable Goals, we reach into the areas of land use policy, food policy, biodiversity, climate mitigation and adaptation, climate adaptation goals. In terms of EU policy and legislation, we interact with obviously the key water directives on urban wastewater, bathing water, drinking water, nitrates, sewage sludge, wider environmental regulations in the IPPC, EIA, major accidents areas. We interact with the obligations under the Birds and Habitats directives under the biodiversity area, and of course in relation to marine and the floods area. And indeed there can be tension between some of those directives and the objectives of those directives. Not always easy to rationalize. So that makes our world very complex. In terms of the Third River Basin Management Plan, where are we? I think we're making good progress. As many people know, we were very far behind in preparing the second River Basin Management Plan as a result of the economic crisis in 2008, 2010, and the recovery that came thereafter. The priorities given to the establishment of Irish water, the whole water charge controversy, that set us back. So we were very late in delivering our second River Basin Management Plan. We are much more on target in relation to the third River Basin Management Plan. We published the significant water management issues on time, December 2019, and we're now in the consultation phase, preparing for the draft plan before the end of the year. Now we are giving consideration to extending the consultation period by a short amount, given the interruption to business as a result of COVID-19. But I would hope that if we do extend that period, that it doesn't upset our overall objectives to get to a final plan in compliance with our obligations. In terms of the issues that we're identifying at this point, I think we've had very good engagement. I've been at some of the sessions myself, and I was very taken with the active engagement in the room and the openness of all parties to listen. So at this point in the process, we were beginning to crystallize those issues which are coming up as being the significant issues that we need to manage going into the third river basin management plan. There has been maybe some concerns that we are already setting in stone what those issues might be or what the responses might be, given that the consultation process is underway. That's not the intention. I think it would be right to, as you go, as you consult, as you engage, that you begin to formulate thoughts, that you begin to identify issues, that issues begin to coalesce, so that they're clear for further debate. I think there's nothing worse than being overly abstract or obscure. I think it is very good to try and crystallize issues, to bring focus to the debate. So, for example, I know there are issues around prioritization. Is it right to prioritize? But it is an issue about ensuring that resources go to the right place at the right time. But let's have a debate about that. What does that mean? It certainly doesn't mean neglecting issues that need to be addressed. Public participation. I think the new system in the local government, the local authority water program, has brought a very exciting new dynamic to engaging with the community at local level. It's still early days yet in how that works, but I think it is very exciting. I think it gives opportunities to reach into the local community in ways that we didn't have available to us in the past. It brings in opportunities to use the strengths of the local government system to mobilize community action. And again, if we look at COVID, we saw the strength of the local government system in activating volunteers, in activating the community to a common purpose. So there are key strengths there that we have to build on. Land use planning, critical in terms of future sustainable development, in terms of the green agenda, in terms of housing supply, how they interact, and in terms of ensuring the resources that we invest in are consistent with national planning objectives. Agriculture and the food system, obviously, again, critical, significantly linked to changes in CAP, to greenhouse gas emissions, to farm to fork strategy. So these are very, very, very live issues at the moment. I won't go through them all. I think looking at the agenda before us today and tomorrow, I think there will be an ample opportunity to explore many of these issues in more detail. And I think the department will certainly look forward to hearing your deliberations on that. Just turning away from the river basin management plan somewhat, just to look at some other key water policy priorities facing the department right now, as we go into a new administration. The continued evolution of Irish Water as the national utility will continue to be a clear focus. Irish Water is bringing great coherence and consistency and professionalism to the delivery of water services in Ireland. Notwithstanding the controversial beginnings of Irish Water as a company, I think no one is arguing now that about the benefits a single focused utility can bring. So that evolution requires us to separate Irish Water out from its parent company, the Arvia Group, and the government made a decision in that regard in July 2018. We're still on the journey to develop that utility in terms of one workforce working under coherent leadership. At the moment, those services are delivered under service level agreement with local authorities. That has worked really well in many respects. And again, in times of crisis, we see how everybody pulls together. But we've also seen where the lack of managerial control of the workforce on the ground can lead to gaps, can lead to problems where Irish Water might legally be responsible, say, for example, in terms of service delivery or avoidance of pollution, but they don't have the on the ground powers to direct action in those areas. So that can lead to risks that we need to address. So that will continue to be a key focus. We need to continue the investment in Irish Water and their infrastructure and keep that up. We're looking at €11 billion investment in Irish Water in total, 2024. We have issues in relation to the rural water environment, the oversight of group water schemes, of private supplies, and so on. Particularly at a time when so much expertise is going into the Irish Water, into Irish Water. What are the best organisational arrangements for rural water into the future? In terms of funding group water schemes, the Minister announced grants of over 54 million last December to support 621 projects across 25 counties. So we are delivering the investment that's needed to ensure the delivery of good quality water. We expect to see over 104,000 households benefiting from that investment. And in the last week or two, the Minister has announced the long-awaited grant schemes for wells and septic tanks. In terms of the septic tanks, there will be a grant of up to €5,000 or 85% of cost to tackle underperforming domestic wastewater treatment systems. The big change here is that there is no means test. So those underperforming systems will be identified under the existing National Inspection Plan, identified by the EPA. But also in the new initiative under the Second River Basin Management Plan, there will be specific focus, attention on prioritised areas for action and in high status objective catchment areas where we want to protect high quality waters, where the ability to access the scheme will be much more easy for householders. And I think that's a real, a very important initiative that's now coming on stream. And finally, just to finish up, in terms of the other work that the department is focused on this year, we have a number of parallel processes in the marine area. A significant public consultation process has been underway in recent months in relation to the National Marine Planning Framework. At the same time, we have been updating our report for the Marine Strategy Framework Directive in terms of good environmental status of our seas, and we will be reporting back to the Commission on that very shortly. And the third related initiative is to begin a process to expand our marine protected areas. And the Minister set up a group under Professor Tasman Crowe to advise on how that might be brought forward. And I would expect a report from that group in the coming months. So there's lots going on, and I'd be more than happy to take any questions after this presentation. Thank you very much.